This is the Independent Dealer Podcast. Education by dealers for dealers. Now, here are your hosts, Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
All right, everyone, we're here to talk about managing people. And managing people, from my experience, is the hardest thing we can do in our dealership. A quick survey of hands. Who in here has over 50 employees? So there's about 5 or 6 people who have over 50 employees. Anybody over 100? 2? That's a lot of employees. And you didn't start with 100 employees, did you? Or 50 employees? How many did you start with? 2, 3, 4? Mostly us car dealers, we're car dealers, right? We buy cars and we sell them. We're good at selling widgets. That's pretty much what we've always done. And so managing people can be hard. It's probably the most difficult thing I've ever done. Buying a car and selling a car is super easy. Returning a car, not that it's easy, but it can be done, right? Learning to figure out advertising, not too bad. Learning to figure out how to handle leads, not too bad. Learning how to do accounting is easier than learning how to manage people. So I try to read as much as I can on managing people. Now, I don't manage as many people as I used to, thank goodness, because it is really just, it'll give you a headache working from here. So we're going to talk about that today. And I read this great book, and the way I kind of come up with these sessions is, let's find a great book to read, and then let's try to take the lessons from that book and use them in a setting like this. The book is Crime to Perform. It is there's a bunch of good management books out there. Drive by Daniel Pink, I've referenced that many times in my sessions. It's one that you would want to read. Crime to Perform is one you also want to read. I'm very Southern, so if y'all don't understand what I'm saying, you stop me and say, hey man, what did you just say? So, Crime to Perform. Culture. Who in here thinks that their dealership has culture? Everybody's hand should go up. Okay. Because you have a culture whether you like it or not. It was built by you or by your employees. Unfortunately, a lot of times we think our culture is one thing and it's another. Who in here believes that their culture is exactly the way they plan it to be? Nobody should raise their hand because it's not. So how do we get from figuring out what our culture is to getting it to what we want it to be? That's the deal. And in dealerships can really create toxic culture sometimes. And that can come from a variety of reasons, but what you see mostly is competition that just isn't structured well. How many here who have salespeople fighting over whether it was a half deal or a full deal? Has anybody ever had that problem? That creates a toxic culture because everybody's out to get everybody. I love to see that the room is packed and that there are no seats available. There are actually seats available. If y'all want to come in and sit down, fine. If y'all want to stay back there, that's fine too. So we have to figure out what our culture is. Now, a great way to figure out what your culture is to just leave everything alone for a week and come back and figure out what happens. Okay, you may not like what you see. Second way is to interview all your employees. Now, this may not be something that you do. Maybe something that you hire out and somebody come in and just interview all your employees. And that person can assess where you're going. We've got to make sure we shape it intentionally. And you do this through mission statements. Not only people like roll their eyes and they say mission statements. Mission statements are very important. A well-crafted mission statement is very, very, very important. Values should come from us as dealers. If we have bad values, typically we're going to have to hire people with bad values, and that value is going to come out, and we're going to probably be out of business. So you need to shape those with your own, and then standards. You need to have those in your own. And who here believes customers won't belong where they buy from? They do. There's a reason Hermes sells the nicest handbags in the world, right? Because people believe that if I buy a Hermes handbag, I belong to the Hermes culture. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But there's a reason those things happen. And employees want to belong in a culture too. Okay? And we've already talked about how we can shake our culture. It all starts with leadership. Okay? And leadership starts with you, and it comes all the way down through your managers to their employees. So we want leaders that are fire starters. And what I mean by that is you want people who don't just lay back. They want to be excited about being there. They want to make sure that they encourage people to come to them with ideas. How many times have you had a detailer that, says, hey, goes straight to the boss and says, hey, I think we should do this better. Probably not a minute, but you need to be encouraging them. Hey, Mr. Detailer, you're doing a great job. What can we do to make this better? A lot of times they'll say, well, actually, I can really make these cars cleaner and faster if you give me this type of tool. Okay. It starts at the bottom, comes all the way up to you. Now, this should be going through their managers. The managers maybe for you, but your manager should be asking these questions, not expecting this all the time. Now, if you create a culture that expects those detailers to tell you what you need, then I believe that it will happen. But you got to create that. You got to recognize progress. If you hire a young salesperson who's never sold cars before, and he starts out selling 5 cars a month, he gets to 8 cars a month, and he gets to 12 cars a month over the first 6 months, you need to recognize that progress. You need to praise that progress. You need to try to get him to 20 cars a month, and then to 40 cars a month, or whatever that number is. But you got to recognize that progress. You got to recognize progress in the service department. You have an internal inventory manager who's comes on the job first, and they're reconning 30 cars a month, and they're reconning 35 a month, and 40. You need to recognize that progress. Or they're hitting 40 cars a month right off the bat, but the recon cost starts going down, and you don't have cars coming back. Well, that's progress, right? So you need to do this. And you got to coach through mistakes. How many people's employees make mistakes? Everybody, right? How many of us make mistakes? Who's bought a car in the last month that was a piece of crap? Right? All of us make mistakes, but we got to coach through those mistakes because they're going to happen. What we can't do is when a collector assigns to a wrong repo and repossess that car, and next thing you know, the customer's fired up and you say, why'd you repossess this car? I gave the wrong information to the repo agent. Has that ever happened to anybody? Has anybody ever repossessed the wrong car? I haven't. You know what we did? Once we got it there, we figured out it was the wrong car, we loaded it back up and took it back to the parking lot. These things happen, right? So we've got to coach through mistakes. Don't criticize. Your behavior is deliberate. You own up to your mistakes. Talk about it. Coach through them. Coach through other people's mistakes. Don't blame. Blame basis is horrible. And it's the first thing we do. When an employee makes mistakes, what do? You blame them, right? Well, maybe it's the process. Maybe the process is wrong. So, coach through them. Why do we want a great culture? Can anybody tell me what a great culture is? People recognize and held accountable. I like that.
I think people enjoy coming to work.
Right? We're going to get to that. That's great. I like that. But people, if you didn't hear it, but people enjoy coming to work or stay later, right? When at 5 or 6 o'clock and the day's over, they're not quite ready to leave because they're talking, they're having fun. Probably got to get culture going. Buy into your mission. That's the reason mission statements are so important. Anybody else? I'm sorry.
When you and your team are convinced enough to be able to grow in the same direction and eventually get to the game and have difficult conversations with the goal of progress.
That sounds great. I wish I could repeat everything she said. But essentially, it is growing together in the same direction, right? And having tough conversations. That's a real key to being a good, great manager is having tough conversations. I was talking to somebody last night. Can't remember who it was. But he was talking about he's going through this new management deal. Anyway, he was talking about he had a culture that he thought was a good culture because he was a boss that was friendly to his employees. And that works for a little bit. But now he's had a ton of turnover, and the reason he's having a lot of turnover is because, I think he said it was 100% turnover. Well, the reason is because you have to switch at that point from being a friend to being a boss. And that's tough. If you, and I had this problem with my technicians for a long time. We hired some people, and my wife walked in and said, what you have yourself is a fraternity. You don't have a service department. And when that culture pervades, you know what happens? When that technician's not turning his hour, you don't have that hard conversation. So switching from a culture of having being friends and then having hard conversations, what happens is people get offended and leave. So having hard conversations creates a good culture. And the reason cultures win is because if you have a great culture, your long-term advantage over the person down the street is going to be. So make sure we do that. And how do we build that? And this is kind of where we wanted to be here is, I had these notes and I'm not even looking at them, which is terrible. I'm sorry. A way to determine, another way to look and see if you're having problem with cultures, look at your Facebook and Google ratings. Is Facebook even rating? Does anybody know the answer to that? Okay. So you never see those anymore. If you believe you have a problem with culture, just have a thorough look at your Google score. Because if you got a Google score, I'd say it's less than 4.5, 4.4, you may have a problem. And you may not even know it. Every time you look at, a good way to coach culture is look at your negative reviews and see actually what happened. We can all say, well, that customer is just an idiot. Well, there's a lot of idiot customers out there, but we got some of our employees that just like our customers. So make sure that you're investigating to see where your culture is if you don't want somebody to come in and interview all your employees. Motivation. Direct versus indirect motivation. This is how we build culture. And so often in the car dealership world, we use indirect motivators because we think they work. What's one huge indirect motivator that we use? Pay plans. So, if y'all heard me speak on management before, I will beat this in your head. The old idea of pay plans of commission-based only is a thing of the past. It is terrible. It creates problems, like we were talking about a half deal versus a whole deal. It just creates problems. It demotivates people. It may motivate them short term. If you have a salesman that's selling 25 cars a month, hey, he may only care about money. He may be killing it. He doesn't care. But his first month, he gets 15 cars because he brought in a new salesman. And at 10 cars, the first thing he's going to try to do is run off that 10-car guy. Instead of helping that 10-car guy get to 20 and him back to 25. So pay plans can really create indirect motivation. It's fear, right? It's fear of feeding your family. It's fear of losing your house, fear of losing your boat, all these things. And pressure. Pressure is also a big deal when we come to look at indirect motivations. And pressure is when, you put pressure on them to hit goals that aren't hitting. This can happen in the collection department. This can happen in the recon department. If you put unrealistic goals out there and they don't hit them, then you got a problem. Or you put realistic goals out there and they hit them consistently, then you up their goal a little bit. That can create pressure. And if their paycheck relies on that, it's pressure and it's going to burn them out. I'm not saying that you can't tie goals to your pay plans, but you have to do it smart. And inertia. Inertia is just like, you don't know where you're going. You're just kind of up in the air. Yeah, this is a job. Maybe next week I'll find a better job. We hired a technician who was supposed to start today. And, all the technicians want to give their own boss the 2-week notice. Let me tell you this, if they don't start the next day with you, or if you don't send your roll back to pick up the tools right then, they're interviewing the entire time. Guess what? You think that tech started today? He didn't start because he's still interviewing. So what we want to build is direct motivation in our staff. And this comes from play, purpose, and potential. So I want everybody to say those 3 P's on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Play, purpose, potential. All right. What does that mean for the party? Play. So, who has kids in there? Would they rather play or go to school? Play. Would you rather be playing golf, those who like playing golf, or be in here right now? Golf, right? Or women, what do women like to play? Tennis, what do y'all? So maybe they play. Would you rather go to the spa or would you rather be here? Spa, right? How can we make the spa or how can we make the golf course at a dealership? Now, I'm not saying you got things on the tables everywhere and you're the Google culture, but if you think about what the Google culture is or was, I'm not sure where they are at this point, but these people working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, well, part of that's not always work, right? But as they're planning things home, they come up with ideas of, hey, you know what, I can write this piece of code and it can lead me to fixing this problem. And in the dealership, it's people that enjoy solving problems. And in the sales department, that could be solving a person with marginal credit, solving a problem, getting them in the right car. It could be getting someone's payoff or getting the trade-in more value because they went to CarMax. CarMax says it was worth, $10,000, and you know the right person to buy that car, so it could be worth $12,000. That might be play. That might be what works. It might be your buyer understanding that play to him is finding 10 right cars a day and buying them for the dealership. This is how we create play. Purpose. Purpose happens a lot in the nonprofit world, right? The purpose is, hey, I want to save every dog in Las Vegas. Or I want to save, every woman that's sitting on the street in Las Vegas. It's a purpose of believing that we're helping our community. Who believes that their buy here, pay here store is purpose in serving their community? Everybody should kind of be raising their hand because you are. You're providing a service to those customers who are unbankable, typically, and who are not able to go to a store to get a car. A car is so important to these people. It gets their kids to practice. It gets their kids to school. It gets them to work. Without there being a way for their car to be financed, they may be without a house. Their kids may not go to school. So let's find a purpose. Purpose is big in the collections department. Because if you have a collector that believes in their purpose, keeping their people riding, this is motivation to keep that person riding. A great collector will keep your accounts good, the bad collector will repo everything. So that's purpose. Potential. This is something I hadn't really thought about in the past. And after reading this book and interviewing a bunch of employees at other dealerships, this is probably the most important. And who believes in here that every employee wants to get better at their job and move up? Do y'all believe that? You should, because they do. Just as y'all do. Y'all want to sell more cars, right? Y'all want to grow your portfolio. You want to add a second dealership, which I strongly suggest you not do that. But it's motivation, right? I want to be better at golf. Not very good at practice, but I want to be better. And so potential is a big deal. The potential is growth in your skills in the technician's part, or the players, the sales, having a longer career. Make your sales position a career. Become a car dealer if you're a salesperson or a manager. And increase your income. Motivated teams outsell and outlast. And we kind of went over the fear, pressure, inertia. But we're going to just really quick look at this. Fear, being fired, salary cut, pressure, shame for not moving targets, financial strain, missing goal. Inertia kind of tied to the potential. If there's no growth opportunities, they're going to be looking for another job. And you got to be aware of that. And sometimes you want people to look for other jobs. But I would tell you, you should probably fire them first before you let them look for a job. This is a mistake we all make. It goes back to the culture thing. If you want everybody going in the same direction, if you got somebody that you think you should fire, you should call back today and fire them. And I mean that. Because they are poisoning your culture. I had we're kind of winding our dealership down, And in the meantime, I needed to kind of get some things done, right? And so I let an employee stay probably longer than I should have. And when she quit, she tried to burn the place down. And that's really my fault, right? I should have made a decision, done it, and been done with it. But instead, I had to figure all this out in the process. So you need to hire somebody, hire them, because they're poisoning everything you do. Okay, how can we build these cultures? How can we build these direct motivations? Hiring is where it starts. Who here believes they have a good hiring process? A few, right? Is hiring people the hardest thing you do? Yeah. That's right, finding the right people. But when you find the right people, can you always get them hired? No. It's hard. I don't have an answer to it. I think if you have the right culture and people want to be there, likelihood of hiring does look better. Ethics. That should be the first thing you look for in an interview. What do ethics look like to y'all? Who can define it? Anybody want to try?
Show up, work on time, and trustworthy.
Okay, good work ethic, the trustworthy. How do you see that in an interview? It's hard, isn't it? Hard. There are many books out there that will teach you how to ask the right questions, to figure these things out. Use AI in job interviews. So how do you do that? So look, how do you do that? Well, I love AI, and I only just begun using it. Jeff Watson maybe use it, but now he's got a co-host that's AI. I don't even for our podcast. So he probably just run me off at some point and use it. But say chat, write me 20 interview questions for this position, and I promise you within 10 seconds, chat will write those for you. And you can go even further. So, you know what? I like question 1, 6, 10, 11, 12, 15, 17, 19. Now write me 4 questions that are specific to determining whether this person ethics or what we want our dealership. This is our mission statement at our dealership. Does it align with these ethics, right? Use these tools that are free to y'all in most cases. I pay a monthly fee for chat because I think it's worth that much to me. Do that. Adaptability. This is key to hiring the right people. Who in here started their life as a detailer in a dealership? Who started as a technician? Got one. Okay. Who started as a salesperson? Now, we just went through that. People that raise their hand as detailers, are any of y'all owners now? That's at least 4 of those detailers that are owners. Do you believe those people are able to adapt? Everybody should say yes. Just think about it. They adapted from being a detailer to being an owner. So how can we determine whether that person that we're trying to hire has adaptability? Well, look at their past job. Did they start out as a cook at McDonald's? Did they go to here? Did they go to there? They work at Walmart, and they work in the retail shop, and they work as a lube tech. All these things will show whether a customer, whether we can adapt. And positivity, you don't want to hire negative people. And I know I probably don't need to say that, but how many times have we hired bad people and you just don't know it? So make sure you're asking the right questions. If a person is in for an interview and they're negative up front, just go. It's better not to hire them than to hire the wrong one. Protect and grow your culture. And I'm saying here, appoint a culture watcher. And a lot of us probably don't have enough employees to worry about a culture watcher. You can be the extra self. If there's gossip going on in your collections department about a customer, you got to shut that down right now. Some of us like to join in. We've all all joined in on this thing. You can't do that. You gotta shut them down immediately. And if you see a salesperson stealing a deal from another salesperson, that's bad culture. Shut it down. Even if it's your best salesperson and you see them making questionable decisions, you can't have that. Shut it down. Your managers can bring these things to you. Track team and motivation. You have to motivate people by tracking them. Now, I said back a little bit ago that can hurt people. Not tracking people can hurt people. So determine what you need to track it, and share that with your employee each week. That will grow the goal. What you track, what gets measured gets managed. What you track ends up meaning how good your dealership is. We want to look at tactical versus adaptable performances. Tactical is making sure that you follow process, right? Who in here has a inventory process, recon process? Please, everybody raise your hand. No, I just buy the car and I bring it to the dealership and I sell it. How many of y'all have seen cars with stickers from the auction on the front line of the dealership? Don't be that dealer. Okay. So you want to hire people that are able to follow processes. People that come from fast food are able to follow processes. As long as we have the right processes in place, they can follow. So don't look down on someone because of where they may have worked in the past. Sales processes are super important. Everybody that's worked in a corporate sales environment has a sales process, and they're able to follow. So if you have it, they will follow. Adapt. These are harder to figure out. Have we ever had to adapt to a crazy customer in our office? Yeah, probably every week. And inventory. When we have a car we thought we bought right, it gets to the dealership, which happened to me last week, $40,000 truck, and it's got a dent on the side, and it's a $2,200 dent. What do we do? What do we do then? Well, we got the truck sold. What do? We fix it and we move on. So how can we adapt? How can we adapt to customers that bought a car last week and it broke down this week? You want people that are able to adapt on the fly and not have to second guess everything they do. The dealership that adapts the fastest wins. This is in every aspect. If that customer that bought a car last week and broke down this week and you don't answer the phone for 3 days, you think you're gonna get a bad Google review? But what if you answer the phone as soon as they call? You say, you know what, we're sending our tow truck out right now to figure that out. You think you're gonna get a bad Google review? I mean, you might, but I doubt it. Customers are understandable if you do what you say you're gonna do. So you gotta adapt. You gotta adapt to changes in inventory environment. Who in here bought a car last week and it's probably worth less this week? It happens, right? It happens. Who here bought a truck that they knew was going to sell 10 months ago and it still hadn't sold? Right? Gotta adapt. And that might be your manager dropping prices probably. Lifting the truck, putting big tires in. All these things are adaptability that you've got to understand and go with. And we got to train to handle these, these problems that arise, and this is just a quick acronym. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. If you can handle these, and you can hire people that can handle these at your dealership, you will have more sleep, you'll have more vacations. Now, they may have some stress, but that's their problem. But you're going to pay them for the stress. So it works out better for you. Volatility, collection calls, you can have volatility in sales. But you got to remember that if you can't handle these type of things, or if you can't hire the right people, then you're going to have problems handling when they happen, because nobody ever has these type of situations in their dealership, right? What was this? Building career ladders. We talked about this in the 3 Ps. Anybody remember what the 3 Ps are? Play, purpose, and potential. On the count of 3, we're going to say it again, right? 1, 2, 3. Play, purpose, potential. And I said I think that potential might be the biggest one now. So, who in here has a defined track for every employee in their dealership, a track to move up? Does anybody have that? 1, well, 2. So, I believe this might be the most important thing you can have when it comes to HR. You may have a detailer that wants to be a detailer their whole life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we can also show them a way that they can make more money, or they can become the lead detailer, or they can, spin them off their own detail line or whatever. But you've got to build these career ladders. Learn to earn is the first thing, right? Advancement in skills, earnings, and responsibility. So, who has service part? Raise your hand. Okay. Who's hired a loop tech that is now B-Tech? Yeah. Maybe half of them. Is that advancing in skill? So when we hire that loop tech, do you think he wants to be a loop tech and make $15, $17 an hour? Is that able to be that the rest of their life? No, they don't. Okay. Good loop techs want to be master techs with that. And the way we can figure out how to get them to be master techs is show them, you know what, I'm going to pay for your ASE certifications. I'm going to show you, as soon as you become a C-level tech in ASE, we're going to take that salary from $17 an hour to $21 an hour. As soon as you become a B-Tech, you're going to go up to $30 an hour. And as soon as you're an A-Tech, you're going to get X. And as soon as you're a Master Tech, you're going to get $45 an hour. You think you can hire somebody, a loop tech, that's 19-year-old today, and show them a path to become a Master Tech in 6 years and make $45 or $70 an hour by the time we get there? You think they would be interested in that? They would be, right? And your chance of keeping them is going to be high, right? Great loop tech is worth their weight in gold, especially in the recon department. If you've got a Master Tech doing all of your initial inspections and loop techs are hanging brakes and doing that, you make crazy money doing that, or you save a lot of time. So also in the sales department, what we used to do is hire a sales assistant, right? And that sales assistant, you show them a pathway to becoming a salesperson, because I promise you, when they come in as a sales assistant making $12 to $15 an hour, and all of a sudden they see that your head salesperson is making $100,000 a year, do you think that motivates them? Probably motivates them, right? So you gotta create these paths. If you have a salesman that you're hiring, you say you're gonna sell 15 cars a month. I'm gonna show you how to get 25 cars a month. And then if you really like doing that, maybe you could be a manager one day, maybe you could be an owner one day. Or maybe you could run the dealership while I go to Vegas. Think that works for them? I think so. So we want to find the aspirational points for everyone. I read a book probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's called Some Manager. And he interviewed every single, I know that narrows it down. Now think about here this thing. Anyway, the whole premise of this book was interview your employees. Now, you go back and interview your employees. You should interview them. And the deal was, what made this person tick, right? And if you know that your collector, who's your head collector, and she's the best, what she really wants to do is save puppies. And you can show her how doing this job helps her save puppies. That's going to be good. So you know what? If you meet your numbers next month, I'm going to donate $1,000 to the puppy orphan. They might be motivated by that. You never know. So find out what really makes people tick. And you got to interview people when they come in. You got to interview them 3 months later. You got to interview them a year later. You got to interview them 6 months after that. Stay on top of it. The worst thing you can do is just all of a sudden stop talking to your employees. They will quit. They think, oh, no, they don't like me anymore. The time runs on the ladder, we talked about that. The ladders are super important. I was last 2 weeks ago at a dealership, and one of the things I like to do at a dealership is interview every employee. And what this does is, and I walk in, I say, you just tell me everything. The reason this dealer hired me is to figure out how they can make their dealership better. If there's a criticism of the owner, they want to know. Because the owner wants to fix it. Why am I here? Because the owner wants to fix their problem. And this guy, and you will not believe this, the actual name of this guy was Johnny. In the story, you know Johnny, but that's not the case. This guy's name is Johnny. And the employer goes, I want you to interview Johnny first because Johnny's quitting. I'm like, well, okay. He said, can you do the exit interview? Love to. So I go in there and start talking to Johnny. And Johnny is the best person on this entire staff. And he's leading. He greets people. He's bilingual. This leadership had several Facebook pages. He's actually running one of them and doing a pretty good job of it. Taking pictures, posting them on the Facebook page, posting them on the website, the best pictures they ever had. He's doing all the great things. And as far as it's his last day, and I said, well, I mean, why are you leaving if you not like the job? Oh, I like the job a lot. Okay. You not like the people here, John? I love them. I've known these people forever. They sold my parents' cars. And, no, I love them. Okay. Well, why are you leaving? He said, I don't see this job going anywhere. I don't see it going anywhere. Okay, well, did they not tell you that you might be selling cars one day? No, they never told me that. So you just figured you were going to be hired and answer the phones for the rest of your life. Well, that's kind of what they told me my job was. Okay. All right, Johnny, I want you to stay at this dealership. What if I could tell you we pay you $75,000? This kid's making $19 an hour. Does anybody know what $19 an hour is? 50? What is it? $38,000. So y'all gonna spend $38,000 out. Right? Somebody is. Okay. You're gonna do something stupid, you're gonna spend $38,000. Is that not right? I mean, is somebody gonna do something stupid like that? I said, what if I told you today that I could get you $75,000 to stay? Would you stay? No, I didn't. He said, that's a lot of money. And I said, yeah, what'd you say? No, I don't think so. I was like, well, what's going on? So, Johnny's backstory. He left USPS before coming to this job as a rural mail carrier. And there was no path to him becoming a rural mail carrier. So he left. Now, mail carriers make pretty decent money, right? And you don't work for 4 or 5 hours a day. Not a big deal. Before that, he was at a full shopping network fulfillment center. He was there for 5 years. Well, Johnny, why did you stay there for 5 years? Well, I was on path to be manager. Well, why'd you leave? Well, in case you didn't realize, Full Shopping Network's not moved very. I figured it was time to get out. Okay. Where are you going now? I'm going to a construction job. Construction? Ever done construction in your life? Yeah. But you know what? They offered me a pay plan that I thought was very competitive, and they showed me the path to become a project manager. But you don't know anything about construction. He's like, no, but they told me how I was going to get there. And that's why he left. Because this dealer didn't show him how he was going to become a salesperson. The most important, in my opinion, person that worked at this dealership. I mean, it's really hard to find people that are active, that are bilingual, that love to talk to people, that can do social media. That person's a diamond in the rough, but they couldn't keep it. So what he really wanted was to feel challenged. I wrote this down. Number one, to feel challenged and to have a ladder to become better, in a better position what he was. He wanted to build relationships. And that's what he really loved about the job he was about to lead. And he was able to build relationships especially in the Hispanic community. We want to continue to do that in a construction document to be able to do that. And we can afford to grow and to be, be better than what he was. So do not think that not creating these ladders is not going to affect your people, because it will. We talked about this before, smart pay plans. I'm running out of time. Money motivates now. That money will run out. I can't tell you the perfect pay plan, but I can tell you this. Commission-based pay plans work for a month or two. Election staffs, if they hit their targets, everything's great. The minute they don't, and their pay goes down by $1,000 a month, you will get pushback, and then you'll up their salary. So build them smart, pay fairly. Do not try to get the cheapest person to work for you. Do not try to hire a really good person for a less amount of money. If you think this person is right, and you have your job to advertise for $55,000, this will take $70 to get that person. Hire that person. Now hire them fast if they don't work, but do it. And celebrate learning. Every time someone gets a new certification, if you've got to take this new certification, if you've got a collector that went to a collector training, if you got salespeople that went to sales training, have a freaking party at your dealership. Celebrate it, because they will get better by celebrating this. Gosh, I wish I had more time. The REAP method. Remember, assume employee intent. Employees want to do the right thing. Don't blame them if something happens. Talk about that. 4, the 5 scenarios of why. We may have time to come back to that. Ask people if they do mess up. Why'd you do that way? But you will find out why they did that way. 9 times out of 10, when somebody screws up, you ask them why, they're going to tell you, because you told me to do it that way. Has that ever happened to y'all? Yeah, but it has. You know why? Because they didn't understand what you told them. And so having it written down is a big deal. Develop a plan to fix employee action. If you had an employee that made a mistake, have a plan to fix that. 5 scenarios of why. Does anybody know that? Yes, sir. I don't. And I'll just say, I do not like commission-based pay plans. I do like goal-targeted pay plans. I like smart pay plans. Commission can get, there can be too much going on. Simple is better. Anytime you have something that, and I'm not saying to go home and blow up your pay plan, do that, probably have people quit. You have to slow roll this. What we do when we were introduced to pay plans, we showed them how this pay plan that they were moving to is going to pretty much guarantee them exactly what they're making. That's what you got to do. If you're switching pay plans, say this is how it's going to work. Now, sometimes you miss the target and the pay plan doesn't work. But you got to be smart about it. We have closing. Motivated teams equal higher sales, lower turnover, better reputation, and more fun money restored. Questions? We don't have questions. I'm going to go back and start talking more. Here you go.
Question where the whole labor relation thing, as you said, actually goes on the concept.
Okay. Best practices because of and these are best practices. I'm going to tell you, I'm not. I think they work, but you may have to try it. A team pay plan in sales is better. Okay, a team targeted pay plan. So instead of each individual salesperson being paid on each car they sell, if you've got three salespeople, their target should be 50 cars a month or 55 cars a month, right? And have the bonuses tiered for the whole team. That will work out better. Because if you're having to take your time to determine whether that was a half deal or not a half deal, that creates problems. Well, I talked to that customer first from the CRM. Yeah, but you weren't here the day they showed up. So you get all these. I didn't put it in the CRM. Well, that's your fault. Well, questions? Yes, sir.
So in a smaller dealership, where maybe you only have one plant, one salesperson, like we pay them based on their collection, based on their sales, but that's not the only way they get paid. So how do you make a pay plan when you only have one? I mean, we're not creating competition.
Yeah.
And then also in addition to that, there's only so far a person can move up in a small business. So how do you create those ladders and those goals? I mean, we do some of that, and I feel like we may have reached capacity as far as offering those things when you only have 10 employees, 12 employees.
Eric Freeman brought this up one day on our podcast, and he said the reason he opened up his second dealership because they were running out of space. They had great employees that needed to employ them somehow. So, with that being said, pay plans for small businesses are hard, especially when you have one salesperson and you have one collector. That's probably the most difficult. Growing is not here, right? I don't have the best answer there. I think growth is your best option.
We open second location, and shut it down. So
Yeah, and that happens. So, some of those people who have one salesperson and one collector, they're gonna stay with you for the rest of their life. Just make sure you're compensating them. And making sure they're hitting numbers. If you have targets, just make sure they're hitting them. Just don't pay them to pay. Oh, you didn't hit your bonus this month, I'm gonna pay you a bonus anyway. Never do that. That creates really bad problems. Next question. Primed to perform. Culture will determine your legacy. Bad cultures, you're gonna go out of business. I can tell you that. Don't do that. Don't fall victim to it. And the 5 whys is this. If someone comes to you and they say, I want to finance this customer, and you're back in there and say, well, they don't grade right. First question should be why. And they'll say, well, they've been on their job for 3 years. The next question should be, why does that happen? Well, I think they're going to perform. Wow. 5 whys before you stop. And if you get to the 4th why and they don't have another one, then it's probably not good. Also, in the search part, I think we should put thank you for this. I think the car needs a computer. Has anybody ever heard that? That you have. Wow. Well, it's not starting. Okay. Why is it not starting? Because it needs a computer. That is not a good why. Well, I traced it, and it could be 2 options. It could be a bad key or a bad computer. Okay, well, why do you think it's the computer, not the key? Well, we don't have a key machine. That's another why. What should we call a locksmith in first before we spend $1,500 on a computer? Well, maybe. So you see where the whys can go here? I think we should wholesale that car instead of retailing it. Well, why? Well, we got $500 made on wholesale. Okay. Well, how much could we make retail? Well, we could probably make $5,000. Well, then why wouldn't we wholesale it? So always ask why 5 times. Any other questions? Because I think they're about to run us out.
Thank you for listening. Please leave us a review. We'll catch you in the next episode.